Forget gurus. Forget anyone claiming to be an online business expert without going through the challenges of entrepreneurship themselves. The Real Money, Real Business podcast is here to prove the best insights in online business comes from your fellow online business builders. We dig into stories of entrepreneurs selling their business on the Empire Flippers marketplace so that you can learn how they made their business profitable, how they overcame obstacles, and what lessons they learned in their online journey. If you want to take your business and your knowledge to the next level, you've come to the right podcast. Let's get started.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Real Money, Real Business podcast. We record these interviews so potential buyers can learn more about the business and the seller to help them make a buying decision. Now, all of the business details, which include the type of business it is, how much revenue and profit it makes, and all of the assets included in the sale can be found on the business listing. To view this information, you can visit empireflippers.com/marketplace and search for this business listing number, which is listed in the video thumbnail and the description. Or if you're watching this on YouTube, you can click the link in the description to go straight to the listing. And if after listening you want to take an even deeper dive into the business to perform your due diligence before potentially purchasing this business, you can unlock this listing to look through all of the business information, which includes the domain, the products, the P&L, and more. Can you tell us a little about your background in building and running online businesses?
My background is kind of based in SaaS startup building over the last 10, 15 years. I ultimately was doing a lot of travel and work kind of across the country and traveling a ton, which is really kind of what led me to develop the product. The product itself, kind of a travel-related product for air travel, and I would get to the end of my destination after 5 or 6 hour flights a lot of the time, and that kind of led me to actually invent and create the product. You know, I was on a flight and kind of finagling with a few things to kind of get it together, and ultimately came home and made a few different prototypes in my garage, and then was using them on flights and would get asked about them all the time. So that kind of spurred on a little bit of creativity in my mind of, hey, how could I get this going on Amazon, get a patent filed and kind of start the process? And ultimately kind of started it very ad hoc, found a couple suppliers through some friends of mine that had contacts in China and had the product developed, and then had a minimum order of like 200 units or something, I think was the first order I bought from the factory. And, you know, really the rest is kind of history. You know, the business took off. I got it on Amazon listed, had a handful of 5-star reviews that got added to it from customers right out of the gate. And it really just took off from there. You know, ultimately the business in the niche has kind of been an interesting journey. We've kind of started with the single SKU, the original. Now we have 2 other SKUs, and then we have our co-branding and licensing agreement. But, you know, really just the evolution of the product has been pretty natural. We don't do a lot of marketing, and we ultimately just fulfill through FBA. And then we used to have our own website. We kind of stopped doing just because 3PL issues and some challenges that more on kind of time and availability on my side than anything else, not because of 3PL, but it was just a lot to handle. Kind of getting it up and running, and I just put it on the back burner with a lot of the other things I have going on in my life right now. But overall, you know, the business itself is exceptionally strong. You know, the kind of background I have as well too, mostly in software, but we're really driving scale, efficiency within business has been my forte kind of throughout my career. So really applied that a lot to what we've built with the company, and it's a very hands-off type of business.
So why are you selling the business now instead of keeping it and growing it further?
We're selling the business right now. And when I say we, I have a minority partner in the business, but I'm kind of majority ownership. But selling the business really because of a multitude of reasons. I think I've been doing very well in SaaS and have continued to grow in executive capacity with a company that's taking up more of my time. And, you know, this side hustle that I kind of started 5 years ago, ultimately it's had its interesting challenges with COVID is really that the core of that interesting challenge. So we got decimated because of COVID, because it was a travel related product. You know, our sales went down about 90% overnight when travel restrictions went in place. And, you know, I kind of thought at that point, the business maybe wouldn't survive, and it was just kind of like, hey, we'd long tail it out and kind of just keep it going with what inventory we had and so forth. And the business has made a full, if not even more so, recovery from COVID. You know, kind of all the travel restrictions, everything's back to normal. And the business is really cranking. Part of it is I want to, you know, be in a position where I look back at the business and say it was a great success. You know, and that's kind of going through an acquisition is what marks that kind of flag in the sand, if you were a line in the sand, if you will, from my point of view. So, yeah, I feel like we've had a lot of really great growth over the last year. We're doing better than ever. Best months ever are getting recorded right now in this year. You know, time to sell it while it's really cranking. And, you know, the other thing too is it's kind of getting more out of my expertise. This could easily be a multi-million-dollar business. I fully believe that. You know, it's just about kind of the marketing expertise, spending a lot of time really developing good campaigns, social media campaigns. It's a very viral product. A lot of people see it on a daily basis, when they're out and about and traveling. So I think with the right marketer, the right, kind of ultimately engine, behind the marketing could drive a lot of that. So, that's kind of one of those things a little bit, maybe like sending your kid off to college. Like I really want to, see the business kind of flourish and do anything I can in the transition to make that happen. But the reason for the sale is that I don't need to sell it right now. I mean, it's going really well. I can continue to manage it. It's a very low effort business, but I ultimately want to, kind of convert it into something that's, more liquid and, ultimately, kind of cash out on this great thing that I built over the last 5-6 years.
What did you learn from building this business that worked for you? Or what do you think contributed to the success you experienced with this business?
I honestly think that the business philosophy of the product, just how we've built the product has been very key to the business success. It's a product that gets a lot of eyeballs. It's in a public place when you use it. A lot of people ask you about it when you're using it. That's both anecdotal from my experience and feedback from customers. So when you see it, you realize the need it addresses right away. So we have done literally no marketing in the last 2 years, 3 years even, outside of pay-per-click in Amazon. We've done some Facebook campaigns and other kind of social media campaigns early on, kind of in the first couple of years, but we honestly just stopped doing that just because of the calorie burn and the spend that was kind of going on with it. We had decent ROI. I forget like the exact ACOS, but at the end of the day, it just wasn't something I really wanted to get kind of scientific on and put a ton of time and effort into. But the business philosophy is very key to our success. We make simple products that make a travel experience much kind of better and improved for business travelers, pleasure travelers, kind of anybody ultimately who's flying longer distance. So our core goal there too is that this product is developed around a couple of core philosophy within supply chain. It's a very easy product to pack and ship and actually carry as a user as well too. So we've shipped everything via air freight since the beginning. Not the most cost effective, but ultimately I think just with my busy schedule, it kind of works out the best way. It's really predictable. It's super easy to do. Ultimately the timelines are really fast as well. So we've kind of kept that philosophy of just simplification, really, like I said, a lightweight product. It's got a huge branding marketable area. It's really visible. I mean, those are things that have really led to the brand success. As I mentioned, we got decimated in COVID and we didn't do any change to our marketing. I mean, it was just same pay-per-click and Amazon, and that's fully come back and recovered way above our previous COVID rates as well too of what we were selling prior to the pandemic. So I think it just is a natural testament to the strength of the business. It went through a real troubling time and it came back really by itself. There wasn't anything we did avidly to kind of build the business back. I actually kind of took a step back from the business just for a few months and just was like, man, what do I want to do with it? How do we want to approach it? And even in that time, it started to pick back up and kind of gave me a pause and a bit of hope. And then ultimately about a year later, it was back to normal. Pretty great from that perspective, just from, I think, a core aspect of how our product is designed and how we've gone to market.
Got it. So was there anything you tried that didn't work out as well?
I would just put kind of marketing in general in this. I haven't spent a ton of time figuring out different campaigns and A/B testing within marketing. It just ultimately doesn't interest me very much. And I think there's a lot of work that could be done and a huge amount of effort that could be put into that. And honestly, like, I don't want to be cliche, but I really do think that this product could totally go viral. Like, it's got an element that everybody can use it. Ultimately, if you're traveling on an airplane, like, you're a customer. It's got a huge TAM, but ultimately a lot of opportunity for a good marketer to come in, and whether it's TikTok or influencers or all sorts of different campaign channels in that regard, I think there's just a really strong opportunity to get that right that we ultimately just have never really pursued there. Also, too, from a supply chain issue, I mean, we're very loose with our supply chain, not supply chain, but like our logistics. We ship everything via air freight. We then keep that effectively a free warehouse. Like, it's basically a building that I have on my property, very minimal. We have a couple pallets on site, but we basically ship single one-off boxes to Amazon kind of when we need to from an inventory perspective. So we're not shipping anything directly from the factory to Amazon. We're not managing that with diligence. It's just kind of a convenience factor that, like I said, I mean, this is a side business for me. I'm very busy with my 9-to-5 and growing another company. And so it's just ultimately, it's kind of more the convenience factor that ultimately hits our revenue a little bit more. So the profitability could even be greater from what you see on paper now within the valuation.
Can you describe the amount and the type of work that you do on this business to maintain it?
This is an extremely low effort business. So on average, I probably spend 1 to 3 hours a month on this business. I check sales almost every day. Like, I'll be kind of looking at Seller Central just to check and see the progress if we're having a good day or bad day. More of an addiction than anything. But, generally the work that we typically do is sending a PO to China for starting a new inventory requests, ultimately picking up those pallets from the airport once every couple months. It literally is minimal. I honestly don't do any day-to-day work for the business other than going to UPS and dropping off a box every couple of weeks type of situation. So very, very hands-off, as I mentioned. We let our campaigns on marketing just run. We kind of check them once again every couple of months just to see how they're doing. But it's a very low effort business. It's extremely turnkey. Also, too, kind of talking about the licensing agreement. So we have a licensing agreement with effectively a co-branding supplier that deals with getting co-branded items out to 500 Fortune 1000 companies. All that work is off of our shoulders as well, too. That company purchases our product directly from our factory. They handle all the product on the China side and then ship that to their facilities and then basically distribute that product out to customers as they purchase it. So ultimately, we don't touch any of that product either. We just get a quarterly check effectively from that organization as a part of our royalty agreement there.
Now, if you were to keep the business, what are some ways you would try to grow it?
There's a ton of opportunities with this product. As I mentioned, this could be a multi-million-dollar product here for a buyer. Huge opportunities with marketing, just general kind of go to market there. As I mentioned, we have a co-branding agreement with a tier one supplier. We get royalties on any product they sell. So there's a huge opportunity there as well to actually develop a sales team, an outbounding team to go after certain customers and profiles with co-branded product. You could do that in a very scalable fashion as you're not having to deal with any of these orders. So it would be through that tier one supplier that they would have to fulfill these. And they're very capable. They can do a huge amount of throughput on these short order with full decoration and branding on the product itself. I think also, too, there's a ton of logistical and kind of operational growth opportunities. Like I said, we could trim the margins of the business almost by double digits by just shipping via ocean, shipping via more cost-effective ways. If the buyer potentially has multiple products that they're bringing in the same time, buying out whole containers or 20-footers, kind of whatever most cost appropriate there, kind of based on volume purchasing. But we buy our volume pretty minimally. MOQ is typically 3,000 to 7,000 units, usually most orders. We could be buying 20,000 units at a time and having those shipped via ocean to get some cost benefits in doing so, but we just haven't pursued it kind of from just logistical standpoints and ultimately the time involved and needed for that type of change in our operation. I think also, too, there's a huge amount of just kind of direct retail types of strategies that we've never pursued in airport retail, travel-centric retail. There's a huge amount of possibility with that type of channel as well. It's a very approachable product from a lot of different perspectives. Actually, our own website, we have roughly 100 visitors a day to our website. Our product says out of stock, check Amazon basically on the website. So there's a huge opportunity to get the website up and running and convert off the website as well, too, that shouldn't be overlooked in potential opportunities there.
And what are the biggest risks with this business that a buyer should be aware of?
Ultimately, the risks of the business, I think, are kind of what we've experienced thus far is that, big impacts to travel can affect this business, right? So if we had another pandemic or a huge shortage of travelers, that affects the overall sales of the product. We have kind of a competitive landscape. We do have competitors, but we're the kind of top dog in that market. There's a lot of fringe competitors too that are important to kind of understand. But yeah, at the end of the day, we're very strong in the market. We've got a really great branding actually kind of speaks to that competition a little bit, which I can go into later on in a separate phone call. But generally, I think this is a pretty low risk type of company for purchase. At the end of the day, we're talking about a pretty big macroeconomic event that would keep the business from growing year over year. I mean, if we don't touch it, it typically grows anywhere from 60 to 30% year over year. And I think that'll continue. The other thing is, maybe another risk, like in the macro side, is airlines evolve. Some airlines are trying to kind of tackle this niche and tackle this need at a macro scale, but we're talking about engineering in a very kind of slow-moving corporations. I would say there's at minimum 5 to 10 years of really great market share that can be captured still with the product.
And how much support are you willing to offer a buyer who acquires this business?
I'm willing to offer any type of support for the transition to be successful. Like I said, this is kind of a baby that I built. I'm sending it off to college here. I ultimately want the buyer of the company to be super successful in turning this into a multi-million-dollar business. Yeah, I mean, I would offer kind of questions and emails, for the first 90 days, 60 days, whatever we want to come to an agreement. But I'm really open to a lot of different concepts and ideas on this, free of charge, effectively for that maybe 90 days of email and phone support. We can have weekly meetings too, if that's required. I honestly don't think it will be required. Like it's a super straightforward business, but I'm happy to take any calls and conversations about things in the transition. Also, I mean, if needed as well too, I've got a lot of knowledge in the co-branding space as a part of our royalty agreement. And so happy to kind of provide consulting expertise if needed. We could figure out an hourly rate. I'd be willing to kind of extend that support for up to 6 months with an hourly rate for time that's needed of my time to kind of help with strategy or help with other aspects that may be needed in kind of terms of the transition. But, very amicable on my side to make sure that that happens and ultimately the buyer gets what they need from our side.
And regarding the sale of this business, just confirming you commit to a non-compete?
Fully aligned with a non-compete. This is a space that I will get out of completely. I have other initiatives and businesses that are selling on FBA's side. We're just kind of spinning up, but they aren't travel related at all. It wouldn't be anything that has to do with this product at all.
And are you open to negotiating something like an earnout?
I think the business is an extremely solid business. So I would take an offer for an earnout with ultimately a potential lens on that. I think the business is really well positioned here to be super successful for any buyer. If there's risk or there's questions and things that we want to evaluate within the terms of the deal, I'm happy to entertain the idea of an earnout. Probably, I would assume more fixed term than performance-based, but even with performance-based, if that's really the route the buyer's wanting to go, I would be interested in performance-based if there's a substantial kicker on my side should kind of expected performance be hit. So yeah, once again, happy to negotiate on this. I'm open to conversation on it, but at the end of the day, I think full price offers are probably going to be the most kind of applicable and looked at on our side, obviously.
Now, putting yourself in the shoes of a buyer, why do you think this is a business worth buying?
I honestly think in my conversations with my vetting advisors, other advisors that I work with kind of in the e-commerce space, in the SaaS space, this business is one of the best businesses you could buy, hands down. It is so turnkey. There's literally no effort. It just prints money. It's a very great operation right now. If you buy this business and you don't do anything to it, it's going to grow 30 to 50% year over year. And so initially you hold on to this exact business as it is today. In 2 years, you can sell it for probably double your money. So that's a very strong value prop, I think, just generally. We're one of the few businesses, I think, ever to be sold on Empire Flippers that has a royalty agreement. Once again, it's another channel that's completely hands-off. We have a great relationship with this tier one supplier. This would be a part of the handoff to the new buyer as well, too, that you'd get introduced to them and we'd facilitate an easy, clean handoff there. But at the end of the day, this is a very great space. There's a huge amount of TAM. It's a very easy product to ship, very easy product to manage. As I mentioned, I probably have 10 to 15,000 units on hand on a couple pallets at my facility. It's a very just like straightforward business. It's not like you're dealing with a huge object that takes up a ton of space. It's a very simple operation. We have 3 SKUs as well too. So there's not a lot of variability and options, but you can also decorate the product as well to create that variability with a lot of different marketing incentives as well too. So think of categorical changes. You could say, hey, this is themed or branded in certain ways or limited edition types of thing. There's a lot of opportunities there that the business can be grown into. And as I mentioned, from a retail perspective, there's a huge attractiveness to retail with this product. Ultimately, we've never gone down that path as we don't have expertise in retail, but from a lot of the advisors that I have and have talked to, it's a pretty great play in that space. So we're really confident in this product. I think, it's a super great business to buy. At the end of the day, as I mentioned, it's a very turnkey, easy situation. I think the transition of this business honestly could be a couple phone calls. It's that simple. We're happy to support and kind of make sure that we're addressing any needs that the buyer has ultimately across the board.
Is there anything else you'd like to add that you think I might have missed during the interview?
Honestly, I want to find a buyer of this business that's really going to take it to the next level. That's a big thing I'm evaluating, the conversations that I'm having with potential buyers and suitors. Ultimately, someone who's got a really strong marketing background, strong marketing engine for current businesses, they'll be able to drive this business to multi-million-dollar numbers easily. Honestly, I'm excited to see that happen. I kind of have a stamp on it. Hey, that was a business I created. Like my best case scenario on my side is the new buyer of this business takes it to that next level that I know it can get to. As I mentioned, I'm super busy in SaaS and have executive duties at a Series B startup. So my mind is just not in my side hustles right now, but finding somebody who's just got a lot of grit and hustle and ownership that can take this to the next level, I'm really excited to find that person. Yeah, hopefully that's you. And if you've got any questions, don't hesitate to reach out, book a call with me. We'd love to unpack any further details or answer any questions you might have about the product.
All right, everyone. Thanks for listening. To learn more and see if this listing is still for sale, head over to empireflippers.com/marketplace and search for this business listing number, which is listed in the video thumbnail and the description. And if you're watching this on YouTube, click the link in the description to go straight to the listing. And once you've unlocked this listing, you'll be given everything you need to know about this business. So thanks for joining us, and until next time.